similar perks to the president. Much less salary. Does the president get an expense account? How much was the president's expense account? $50,000. The vice president gets a $10,000 expense account. The home the vice president is provided by the government is called Number 1 Observatory Circle. That's the address. Number 1 Observatory Circle. What's the White House's address? 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. That's the address. Okay. So, but they are provided with lodging, and they get other similar perks. Medical care, Secret Service protection, things of that nature. They get to ride in, transportation. Okay. So are there requirements to be president? Can anybody be president? There are requirements. All right? So let's look at the requirements of being president of the United States. First has to do with your citizenship status. You must be a natural or native-born citizen. Natural or native means the same thing. In other words, you have to be a citizen of the United States, born here, or born to American parents elsewhere. So if my dad was an American and my dad moved to Japan and met a Japanese lady and I was born in Tokyo, would I be an American? Yes, because my dad is an American. Would I also be a Japanese citizen? Yes, I would have dual citizenship. If I say, you know what, I'm done with this place, I'm leaving America and going to live in Japan and renounce my citizenship in America and go live in Japan and apply for citizenship in Japan, am I still an American? No. Whenever you apply for citizenship in a foreign country, you lose your American citizenship. So dual citizenship is something you can only really attain at birth. Okay, but as far as the president goes, the president must be a native-born citizen. So in other words, the president cannot be a naturalized citizen. Arnold Schwarzenegger, you ever heard of him? Yeah. He was governor of California. Powerful man. Literally and figuratively. Not a natural-born citizen. He's from Austria. He cannot be president. He cannot be president. He is not a natural-born citizen. He was born in Austria to Austrian-born people. He's an American, just the same as you or I, but he can't be president because he's not a natural-born citizen. Okay? That's the only real difference between a natural-born citizen and a naturalized citizen. We're all citizens. We're all the same. Once an immigrant becomes a naturalized citizen, they have the same rights and privileges as anybody else, with the exception of they cannot be president. All right? The president must also be 35 years old. 35. The president must also have resided. What's that mean? You got to live here for at least 14 years. You must be a resident here. So if I was born in Japan because my dad moved to Japan, that's fine. I'd still be a natural-born citizen. But at some point, I got to come back here and live for 14 years if I want to be president. You have to reside within the United States for 14 years. Obviously, you got to win the Electoral College. And it's the same for the vice president. They got to be 35, live here for 14 years, native-born citizen, all of that. Okay? All right, so talk about the term of office. According to the 22nd Amendment, upon election, you get to serve your president for 4 years, and you can do 2 terms in a row. If something happens to the president, the vice president takes over and continues the president's term. The vice president would then be allowed 2 terms of their own So it would not count against them in their terms. So if something happened to President Biden, President or Vice President Harris would take over, and then in the next election she could run and win 2 in a row. So because she's fulfilling someone else's term, that does not count against her own term count. But she, just like everyone else, would only be allowed to serve 2 terms. I got a picture up there. Who is that?
Okay.
Who?
I don't know. I just assumed him.
Who? FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Why would I put his picture up there when we're talking about the 22nd Amendment? Because he won 4 presidential elections and nearly served all 4 terms, but he died during the 4th term. And after his presidency, the 22nd Amendment came about to honor Washington's precedent of serving 2 terms and then quitting. Okay, so everybody got that? Almost. All right, so this is all found in the 22nd Amendment, which is one of your vocabulary words. There's also another vocabulary word that is an amendment. Which one? 25. The 25th Amendment. And the 25th Amendment describes the line of succession to the presidency. So if the president dies in office or is unable to perform their duties, whether they be permanent or temporary, this is the line of succession to the president. So it doesn't have to be so fatal, like the president is dead, now it's the vice president. If the president's having surgery for a couple hours, the vice president is the president during that time. That's the line of succession. Or what, and it goes on down the line. And this is all established by the 25th Amendment, the line of succession. So it's the vice president, then it's the Speaker of the House, then it's the President pro tempore, then it's the Secretary of State, and on down the line throughout the cabinet. State, Treasury, Defense, Attorney General, and other department heads. All the way down to Homeland Security. And we've talked about this yesterday. So it would be like Vice President Kamala Harris, and then Nancy Pelosi, and then Patrick Leahy, and then Anthony Blinken, and then Janet Yellen, Dr. Yellen, and then Lloyd Austin, and then Merrick Garland, and then Deb Haaland, and Tom Vilsack, and all the way down the line. All those cabinet post secretaries. If you'll notice something odd, well, at least I think it's odd, the president becomes president because they win the Electoral College. They are elected by the people, along with the vice president. The Speaker of the House was at least elected by people in their district, like Nancy Pelosi is. She was elected. She represents the people of San Francisco in California. That's where she is from. Okay, and then Patrick Leahy, he's a senator from Vermont, who was elected by the people of Vermont. The Secretary of State was appointed by the president. They won no election. None of these secretaries won an election. They're not elected representatives. They are appointed positions. So it's kind of weird, odd that they go to appointed people before elected people. There's nothing important about that. I just noticed it and think it's interesting. Okay. Got all that? All right. Last little bit for today are the roles of the president. And this is what we're going to do. This is the assignment we're going to look at. POTUS. POTUS means President of the United States. Just like SCOTUS means Supreme Court of the United States. POTUS wears many hats. The president does not just enforce laws and that's it. Ooh, I have a It's not just their only job. The president wears many hats. And you can see those roles at play in a variety of different circumstances. For example, the president has the role of chief executive. Chief executive. And that's the job that the president does to carry out our nation's laws. They are the chief executive, chief enforcer. And as part of their job is that, it's a big country with a lot of problems and a lot of things need to get done. And so the president is also allowed to appoint people to help him carry out the law. And that's the cabinet. As you can see, the president's portrayed here with their cabinet secretaries. The president also is not just the chief executive of our nation. They are the commander-in-chief. What does that mean? What is commander-in-chief? That's right. The president is the head of the United States military and every soldier in our country. Every soldier. What about a 5-star general that's got 40 years experience? President's their boss. What if the president knows absolutely nothing of military, has never been in the military? Does it matter? Does not matter. The president is the commander-in-chief and in charge of our military forces. Okay? Throughout early American history, a lot of American presidents were war heroes because the commander-in-chief role to a lot of American voters was the most important role. George Washington, Andrew Jackson, William Henry Harrison. Lots of them were war heroes. Dwight Eisenhower, more recently. Ulysses S. Grant. Several. Zachary Taylor. Okay, anyway, commander-in-chief. They're in charge of our military. Another role the president plays is our chief diplomat. What is a diplomat? Yeah, a representative that uses words to solve problems. The president is our number one. If the president says, "Hey, I'm going to go visit a foreign country so we can talk," they're a diplomat. They are an ambassador. Now, the president can't be in all countries at all times talking to all foreign power leaders in person. So the president, is he allowed to get some help? Yeah, the president can choose people to represent America on his behalf or her behalf. And those people are called ambassadors. And the president can appoint ambassadors. And here's some presidents meeting with leaders of foreign nations. We got President George W. Bush meeting with Vladimir Putin of Russia. We have President Clinton meeting with, this was, I think, at a meeting between Israel and Palestine. We have President Reagan meeting with the Soviet Premier Gorbachev. And this is Jimmy Carter meeting with Nikita Khrushchev, another Soviet. Okay? So, but that's I think President Biden is leaving today to go to, I think he's going to go meet the Pope. So he's leaving our country today. Okay, so that's something that the president does. They're like the face of our nation. So, all right, another role is the president has is the chief of state. The chief of state. They represent the U.S. people and the Americans at important functions. The president goes to the Super Bowl sometimes, and that's okay. It has become a tradition that the team that wins the Super Bowl goes to the White House and meets the president. This is Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, what was his job before he was like a politician? He was an actor, and he made movies. And in one of those movies, he was a football player. You ever heard the old saying, "Win one for the Gipper," from a movie? Ronald Reagan was the Gipper. okay, in an old movie, and they made him a jersey when the Bills or when the Giants won the Super Bowl. Okay, another big function that your presidents are likely to attend is the Olympics. President Bush went to China when the Olympics were there and represented our country, and that's their job as the chief of state. That is a role of the president. People, people interested in those things. Super Bowl, Olympics, yeah. So the president represents us and hopefully represents us well. The president is also the leader of their party. The leader of their party. So, depending upon what party they're a member of, they are the leader of it. Like President Trump was the leader of the Republican Party, whether the Republicans liked it or not. Just as President Biden and Obama and Clinton, they were all leaders of the Democratic Party when they were president and are president. So they typically, even in recent years, it's not always held true, they typically help to support and lead their own political party. Okay? The president also serves as a judicial leader. Now, the president has no job in interpreting laws. They're not allowed to do that. But the people that do interpret the laws, the judges, how do you become a judge? You're appointed. Here you see President Obama appointing Sonia Sotomayor. We got Ruth Bader Ginsburg. These are just some judges. This is a most recent one. Oh, I can't remember this lady's name. She went to Notre Dame. She was the last appointed. I can't believe I can't remember her name. I can't remember. She's a Supreme Court justice. I apologize. And she was appointed by President Trump just a couple years ago. All right. So the president's a judicial leader. Do you think the president's also a legislative leader? Are you guys alive? Yeah. He is.
I figured out that girl's name. Was it
Amy. Amy Coney Barrett. That's it. Mm-hmm. Thank you. The president is also a legislative leader. As you can see here, the president is standing at a podium doing what? Giving a speech. This is a particular speech that is required of the president, the State of the Union address. It has to be made by the president at least once a year. Now, that being said, can the president address the American public anytime he or she so chooses? Yeah, when I was a kid, man, it was a big deal when, like, you're watching TV because there was no YouTube or Hulu or Netflix. You were watching television, like cable, and your program would stop and say, "We interrupt this program for a message from the president." And you knew something was important because the president is taking over the airways and talking to you. Now, in recent years, like our last president, he would tweet people, like tweet stuff. And so it's evolved a little bit and changed. Not, for better or worse, that's how it was done by some presidents. But, that is the right of the president to address the American people anytime they want or anytime they need, with the exception of the State of the Union, which is required. Now, Thomas Jefferson hated the State of the Union. He actually just wrote it down and had somebody else read it. He wouldn't give the speech, but he would write it. He didn't like talking in front of people much. But he's an excellent writer, and he fulfilled his constitutional obligation by writing the speech and then having someone else read it to Congress. The length of the speech varies from president to president. Some presidents give very long State of the Union, like 3 hours. Thomas Jefferson, he didn't even show up. He just wrote it down. Somebody else read it. Okay? Have you guys ever watched one? Like, whatever party, like the way this Congress sits, all the Republicans sit on one side and all the Democrats sit on the other. And so whatever party the president is, like half the people will be like, yeah, and like cheering and screaming, and the other half will just be like this. like just silent. It's really a cool thing to see. Hopefully, we may have to watch it whenever it happens this year because it's crazy. Because one side's like, "That's our guy, yeah, he's awesome," and then the other side just is like,
Nancy Pelosi rip up that one speech.
"Yeah, yeah." It's all politics. I mean, they give this speech in Congress, like they're in Washington. Okay. But it's cool. It's cool. It's fun to watch. It's part of American. It's part of our government. It's neat. So, and also the president outlines his plan for the future. Okay. So questions on these things. Okay.